And now it's 5 past, and since I'm working for Deutsche Bahn, I think we have to be on time. I'm very happy to announce 3 members of PaulCamper, which is a company which I use a lot, and I like it. And so I'm very happy that we have Volodymyr, Claudia, and Agnes here. And yeah, the stage is yours. You have 30 minutes for the content, and then 15 minutes for Q&A, and then again 5 minutes to go to another session. So welcome, and please start.
All right, then yeah, let's get right to it. Hello everyone, and welcome to our presentation about our road and way to agility. Thank you for joining. Also, thank you agiLE Barcamp for having us. We're going to talk about the transition roller coaster we went through in PaulCamper in the last year, and we will also focus on 2 tools that really helped us with this transition. But first, I would like to introduce us a little bit. So who's speaking here? That is my colleagues Agnes, Bova, and me, and sometimes also my cat, apparently. The 3 of us are members of the activation team at PaulCamper, and our purpose is to boost growth. And in order to do that, the 3 of us were put together with other members of our team about a year ago in December, and since then we went on this journey of transformation, and we went through a lot of ups and downs together. As Michael just mentioned, we work for PaulCamper, and our main purpose is to connecting people with nature. So we like to bring people outdoors. If you wonder what that means exactly, so to be more precise, we are a camper sharing platform, and we bring outdoor lovers together. So if you want to go on a camper vacation but don't have your own camper van, motorhome, or caravan, you come to our platform, and then you will find private owners who offer their vehicles for rent. And this is what it looks like in practice. So here you can see, for example, a camper profile. Usually this is where you can see a private car. This is our company car, our beloved Van Paul. And so as you can see, here you can see all the data, and as a renter, you just get in touch with, you look through the search, and then you get in touch with a renter of your choice, or a renter who offers the camper of your choice, which is a little bit like Tinder. And then you get in touch, you chat, and then when everything is fine, you book it. And then you go on a really nice road trip or relaxing camper vacation. Yes, and also this is what you see here, and some other parts of the platform is basically what the activation team works on every day. So we are trying to activate the users that come to our platform and trying to guide them in a very nice way through the booking funnel, and so in the end to get them to book a camping trip. Okay, but enough about PaulCamper for the moment, because you're all interested in the transition journey that we went on and our road to agility. So this is the nitty-gritty of what we will talk about today. I will present to you where we started our trip and how we worked before we went into agile work mode. And then Bova will take over and tell you a little bit about how we changed and how we started the change. And he will also guide you through our troubles we had, because there were a few. And we also came to a point where we had to take a break and really step back a little bit and define what agility means for us. And this basically was the groundwork for us to progress better together and also get into the mode properly. And this groundwork also led to 2 approaches that really helped us, namely the MVP sprints and the team roles, which will be presented to you by Agnes later. And then in the end, I will wrap all the things that have been set up a little bit by giving you 3 findings, key findings that we basically distilled from the last year that we think will help us to stay on the road and can also be helpful for you if you are going through a similar journey right now. Okay, then let's start at the beginning. So as you can imagine, before we went into this agile work mode, as we call it, we basically weren't so different from many other companies. So we had a couple of departments. We had a marketing team and department, a product team, and with a tech team with a lot of developers, also an ops team that consisted of sales and support. We still have some of those departments in slides, but what we basically did is turn into cross-functional teams at some point, because we realized, or PaulCamper realized, that this departmental work in silos basically takes quite a while sometimes to react to changes. And also we weren't growing as fast as we would like to. So we realized we had to change. But to give you a little bit more of an understanding of what it was like to work in the silos, as we call them, Vova will tell you a short anecdote about the tech team work.
Yes, so when I first started in the tech team, which was already about 2.5 years ago, we were working within the Scrum framework, coming with all these pros and cons. So we had quite a lot of let's say traditions that we had to do. One of them was our sprint planning, and every 2 weeks, basically we had one whole day dedicated to do the sprint planning with the whole team, which was, to be honest, quite exhausting. And beside that, it didn't necessarily work very well, as often we were not reaching the goals that we planned initially, because obviously planning is quite a hard task in general that is not yet solved. And then to kind of get rid of those cons, we switched to the Kanban work mode. That was working much better for us. We were much more effective, but still there was this feeling within the tech team and also in the company that we weren't bringing in this growth that we need as a startup.
And yes, I have a similar story, a little bit different, but similar story from the marketing team. We were working on a lot of really great projects. We were publishing a print magazine, producing a podcast, relaunching our online magazine. We were also feeding our social media challenge and bringing lots of advertising campaigns on the road, actually. But we were kind of a small team, and also we had to request each other as resources all the time, and we also therefore had to deny each other all the time. And it was a bit frustrating, because in the end it seemed like each had their own project, which was a priority. So everyone's project was a priority, so everything was a priority, and we didn't really have a clear focus and weren't really measuring what we're doing so much. So in the end, we couldn't really tell how much impact we actually had on the goals we wanted to reach.
And I still remember quite well my first day at PaulCamper, which was about 1 year ago, when I started as a product manager. And I was joining the product and tech team. So on my first day, daily started at 9:30, and about 25 people joined, a lot of developers, QA people, product managers, and we all shared what we did yesterday and what we would do today. And I realized already during that first daily that it was very detailed, quite technical, but also I had no idea what was going on, and also I was not sure why we were doing it. And I was also not sure who was keeping the overview. So for me, it was really hard to grasp on what was going on in the company in the beginning.
Yes, and as you can imagine, this basically was not the best way to grow as a company. So as I just mentioned, there was a lot of hustle and bustle and no growth. So we were doing a lot, but not really knowing if we impacted, and we saw that we didn't impact the things we wanted to impact. And so the company really had to change radically, and decided that we should really, or that we wanted to go into this transformation and become more agile and become more able to react to changing circumstances faster, but also look way deeper into user needs. So focus on user problems and journeys quite a lot more than we were doing so far. And this is what will Vova also describe to you in detail now.
Yes, thanks, Claudia. So I would like to start with this initial concept that we were presented with by our management team. So essentially company management and heads of departments. So as you can see on the slide, and as we were telling before, basically we were kind from this classic departmental structure where everyone was doing, let's say, their own part of work. And what the idea was is to change into these cross-functional growth teams that would actually concentrate on bringing the users value they need and having every expertise within the team to kind of move projects forward. So at the start, we were split by three big chapters. Acquisition chapter, activation chapter, which Claudia and Agnes and me were a part of, and then engagement chapter. To clarify a little bit on the chapter itself, since user value were now our core principle, we basically those chapters were chosen because of parts of the user journey that they touch, so that we bring enough attention to basically all categories of the users. And now coming to the next slide, I would also like to tell you a little bit about some core principles that were also presented to us. So first one being that teams choose work mode and processes that are the most comfortable and effective for them. So basically giving us the freedom to build our own processes and for each team to be able to basically evolve in a way that is most comfortable and effective for them. Then for the next principle, that teams work in cross-functional fashion, and they should be able to quickly adapt to the changes in the external environment, but while also maintain radical focus. And this is one of the principles that was quite highlighted because to actually keep moving forward, we need to keep this focus on one thing as much as possible to kind of push it forward and make sure it reaches the stage it needs to. And the third principle then, that our work mode should be reflecting the agiLE principles. So things like agiLE manifesto, and also one of the inspirations for our new work mode was reinventing organizations, work by Frederic Laloux, I believe, and also reflect the PaulCamper values. So since our culture is quite important for us as a company, it was one of the core principles, and also for us to benefit from the best practices that we had within the organization. And coming forward to how we actually started. On our first week, basically we all gathered as activation team in our office in one room. And the suggestions from our mentors, who previously were heads of our departments, was to start with the design sprint. So to introduce all these new concepts and also this user focus, it was chosen as our start. So as you can see, we went through all the classical stages. So we were actually based on the data, trying to find out the core problem of the users in our part of the funnel as activation. Then we were getting into ideation step, then deciding on the solution, then prototyping and testing. And yeah, obviously we are creating a lot of post-its with all of these steps because that's how it goes. And as you can imagine, this was quite a lot of fun, but also there were some things that, let's say, didn't go so well that I'll tell you about next. So those, yeah, as a team, obviously, since we before everyone worked in different departments, we didn't necessarily even talk before. So it was quite new experience for most of us. We were trying to get to know each other while also trying to work on this problem. We were starting to get better step by step, but yeah, it was also quite exhausting, as you can see on the right picture, just because basically we are spending 8 hours in one room every day during the first week, and it's not an easy experience, but as I already said, also a quite fun one. And I would like now to share also the two things that essentially didn't work very well for us at the first steps. So first thing would be that we are trying to start working with Scrum too early. So essentially during the first 2 weeks, our mentor suggested for us to use Scrum, but as we discovered during the time, as a team, we just wasn't ready. It was too early for us. So with the time passing, actually, we started to introduce some Scrum practices that made sense for us. Yeah, we started getting into it more and more. Where now we are quite strong with it, but at the beginning of the team, it was just too much and too hard for us to also include that into the process. And the other thing would be then having a team which was too big. At the start, there was quite a lot of people on the team, obviously all with different qualifications. And while it has some pros, like basically having all of the expertise you need within the team, also some cons come here was that it's quite hard to reach consensus with all the people. It can be hard to reach some decisions when a lot of people are included. And also, yeah, it's hard to keep track of what everyone is doing. So we start to stray away from it and try to, yeah, have, let's say, a reasonable size for the team.
And yes, as you can imagine, based on the struggles we had with, or those struggles we had, we kind of needed to go and look at the, let's say, original starting ideas for agility and compare with what we kind of think works for us, and really define what agility means for us as a team, how we want to work with it, and how we can really make use of the tools we already know a little bit to progress faster and to go back to original goals of really impacting growth, but also working better together. And that's what Wova will summarize for you.
Yes, so as you can see on the left, this is actually the principles that we already presented before. And on the right, you see a list of things how we actually interpreted its activation team and basically developed within the team to underline those principles. So starting from the beginning, we try to have stable team structure and also fit for purpose processes and routines to help our team to adapt and also continue working effectively with any circumstances. So within any unstable times within the company, within, let's say, our market, etc., we try to build our processes in the way that they support us no matter what, and that we can continue working as effectively as it's possible. Then to underline this radical focus principle, we always try to concentrate on one user problem at the time. So to provide also the best user experience and also to have this concentration within the team on one problem so that we can go through all the right ways, let's say, to solve it. Then also one of our core principles was MVP concept, or minimum valuable product. So we make sure to verify that our solutions are effective, and we do this using MVP experiments so that yeah, basically any solution, we know that it actually works in practice and it solves the user problems. And then the last thing is that important decisions are made autonomously within the team. So we, like any important decisions that we do, we make sure to decide within the team. sometimes it involves most of the team, while in other times we involve a smaller amount of people, because to make our process also effective while taking into account needed perspectives.
Yes, and with that groundwork done, we then also took a look at, or we're looking for tools that would help us improve our process and also kind of help us to make sure we're really working user-focused and we are working in that, let's say, lean way that is not just expected of us, but that we also think could improve our working together. And then at the same time, also we looked into how can we really make sure as a team that we make the best use of our own resources and the best way, how do we make decisions faster and these kind of things. And then we came across two tools, that really helped us improve those things. One were the team roles, 5 of those we have, and the lean MVP sprint approach that we're using every day now. And Agnes is going to tell you a lot more about those now.
Yes, exactly. So on this slide, you see how the team roles work, basically. Because before we had heads of departments who, of course, did the management tasks. And when we started in this team, we were supposed to basically do everything ourselves. And in the beginning, that led to responsibilities that were not always clear. Some people took a lot on and others a bit less. And also it was sometimes easily mixed up, these different responsibilities. And we decided to use the role framework, which was introduced by an agile coach in our company. And you can see our faces here because we all took one role on in our team. So I'm holding the process role, Vova the value role, and Claudia did a transparency role. And to shortly explain what it means, so first of all, you make sure with all these roles that we take care of the important tasks in the team. So the process role always looks at the process, like does it fit each time to what we are doing? Are we working on an MVP sprint, or are we doing a big implementation that asks something for the process? And also the process role works a lot together. So I work a lot together with Vova, who has the value role. And he's always asking the question, are we doing as a team what will create most value for the users of our platform? Claudia has the transparency role, and she always makes sure that the rest of the company knows what's going on in our team, what we are working on, but also that we know what important things are going on in a company and that we have exchange on that. So the alignment within the company. The facilitator makes sure that all the different meetings that we have with the team are going in the right way, that we reach the meeting goals. So I'm also a lot in touch with the facilitator of our team. And we make sure that, that we also use the right methods during these meetings. And a coach role can both have a role in personal coaching of people in the team, but also we'll have a look at what are we not doing so well in the team and what do we need to improve on and how can we reach that. And I will bring that a bit more in practice, but first I will introduce the next concept, because the second thing we learned to apply is the Lean MVP sprint. Maybe some of you already know this, and I will come to some examples in a second. So first of all, basically, this is what we keep applying in our work. So it's 5 different phases, and we can apply this in 1 week, and sometimes it takes some more time. And you see all of them are in a diamond shape, meaning that we first diverge and then converge again to make sure that we have a look at the different options and choose the most valuable ones. And first of all, we need to understand what are currently the biggest pains to solve for our users. So that can be renters or lenders. And that's the people who rent out their camper on our platform. We call them lenders. So first of all, we have a look at user insights that we are currently working on a lot in the company, but also data insights in order to find out what are the issues they are struggling with. And sometimes we need to actually gather even more information. This is an important phase because if you do this wrong, you have to go back basically later if you realize, oh, this was not the right problem to focus on. Then we go to the solution phase, meaning that we have an ideation brainstorm session with the whole team, and we try to gather a lot of ideas. And then we are converging again, and we select the one that we find most promising. After we set up an MVP concept, and in this case, it means minimum viable product as a way to prove our solution hypothesis. So we think a certain solution will work for a certain problem, but in order to find out if that is the case, we need to set up an MVP. And this MVP will prove or it will show or it will falsify this hypothesis. We release the MVP, and of course we measure the results. And then if it's positive, we can go for full implementation, or we can decide to iterate a bit more. And if it's negative, we have a look at what went wrong, and we have a look at the next options. And if we go for full implementation, of course, we also still do the measure learn loop. And
Agnes, you have 5 more minutes, and then we would start the Q&A.
Yeah. So going to the next one, I will walk through this a little bit quicker because here I show how the team roles play a role in the different phases. You can read it in the slides, but I will go through some of them. So in the first pain to solve phase, the facilitator will start up the process of finding the right pain to solve. And the value role will push to find the most urgent problem to solve. In the solution phase, the facilitator again has an important ideation process role together with the process role. And for the MVP concept, the transparency role comes into play because this person, Claudia in this case, will write an MVP story so that the team and also the rest of the company understands why we got there, why we selected this solution. During the MVP release, the process role helps to set up the release plan for the MVP and so that everyone knows what they have to do themselves. And transparency makes sure that there is good documentation. And during the measure learn loop, the value role will make sure that we calculate the value of the MVP and that we fine tune this calculation. And then I would like to go quickly into a little case study, which is the camper profile. So here you see the slide you already saw before. We had a look at it and selected a user problem here. So we can have a look at the next slide. Yes, so the pain to solve. So we found out that while booking, renters have trouble to find the most relevant information to choose the camper for their trip. So they have a lot of camper profiles open. But it's really hard to see, is this what I need or is it the other one? And as a solution, we came with a solution to redesign the top of the camper page so that they have a much better overview of what's going on this camper profile. And I will show it in a visual, what it looks like in this case. So here you see an outcome. We came with a lot of different IDs and basically had a look at value and effort for this. And this, in the end, we plotted in a matrix. And then we found out which solution would be most relevant for us. And this is one method that we use, but we also use other methods like the RISE calculation. We can go to the next slide and then see how it was tested by us. Because as an MVP, we set up an A/B test, meaning that half of the people, the traffic on our website, we sent to the original version and half of it to basically a lean version of what we had as our ID to our redesign. And we compared this with the existing design. And we saw that we achieved 13% more bookings with the new profile view. So obviously, this is a really big improvement, we decided to go for full implementation. And here I will show you what this looks like. So basically so it's hard to see on the screen, but basically what we did is in the new profile version in the bottom, we added more information which is relevant for the user based on the insights that we got before. And for example, we show what license type they need instead of the weight of the whole thing. And also we show if it has a shower inside. So this apparently worked much better for the users. And then in the last step, we keep measuring and learning. So actually we found some issues with the driver's license assignment, also for caravan specifically, and some country-specific differences. So we iterated and implemented solutions for all of these issues. And now I shortly hand over to Claudia.
Yes, so let's finish this up quickly. Usually we would then start to go into a new problem, but this journey is at an end now. And I will give you a very, very short summary of what we learned in the last year. Because we mentioned that we weren't focused enough on user problems before, this is what we learned. So we can only create user value by solving their problems, not ours. So solving their biggest problems and not what we think their biggest problems are. Then the next learning is that always measure what we built, as you just saw in the example Agnes gave, because everything is a test. And even if it fails, we learn something new for a new iteration or innovation. And what helped us, let's say, within the teamwork and personally a lot were the 5 roles, because with them we can share product ownership and manage responsibilities together, and thereby are way faster together. And we can redistribute and distribute resources way better and faster. And with those words, we are at the end of this presentation, and we thank you very much for your attention, and are now looking forward to answering all your questions.
So Agnes, Claudia, and Volodymyr, I have to pronounce your name correctly. Please, can you tell me how to pronounce it correctly?
You can just call me Volo. It should be simple.
Volo, okay, Volo. So thank you guys very much again for this insights that you got. We have many questions here. So I start from the top, and before people are asking, yes, we also will probably next time have a voting, some kind of voting system for best question or whatever. But right now I have to go from up to top. So I start with Falk. What was the most valuable tool or thing you established to structurize your work and to get focus?
Agnes, that sounds like a process question.
It's also a very hard question. Most valuable, it's never so easy to answer. What I think helped us a lot in the beginning was to have a way to prioritize IDs, because we had, this is something that Vova didn't share, but what was also the case, we had a huge list of priorities, of IDs, of problems. And in the beginning, we worked with the RISE model that I shortly addressed, which means that you have a look at reach, impact, and confidence you have in certain solutions. And we involved the whole team to score these, and in this way prioritized. And in the beginning, this was a very valuable way to kind of quick and dirty come up with the prioritization. But to be honest, I think in the end, the lean MVP sprint that we presented gave us the best structure to do our work in. To always make sure to go through the important phases we have to go through to really understand what is going on with the user. So basically this user focus, that was the biggest learning, I think, for us as a team.
Then Marcos asking, is a team switch easily possible if every team has its own work mode?
That is also a very complicated and very good question, because that is actually what we are struggling with still in the company. As you can imagine, we're not the only team that works like that, and teams are reshuffled every now and then. And this so far didn't go so well, if I'm honest. So we haven't figured out as a company how to do that easily, but the idea is, and we've also seen this work in some parts, is, for example, if you have certain ground tools like the roles, for example, and some learnings from the processes you've established in the former teams, you can take them over to a new team and basically try to adapt them to what you need there. And that kind of helps to switch teams a little bit. But what you cannot ignore is basically also the, let's say, team member attachment to each other. Because if you're a good team, you work well together. This is why we kind of try to, that's why we mentioned that we defined our agility also together with having a stable team. That doesn't mean that we always have to stick together. For example, right now, I'm actually working in a different initiative because I'm needed there more than I'm needed in this team. But I'm hoping to come back because we as an activation team have done great things together in the past year, actually, because we have the resources in that kind of combination and also are the kind of people together that we are. Yes, I hope that helped, that answer.
Vera Gebhardt is asking, which size has your team, your sprint team?
We're about 6-7 people at the moment. So it sometimes varies because, for example, new people come in for some projects that we start. So, for example, the renter mobile app. Is that a spoiler to tell? In general, about 5 to 7 people to be lean and effective in that regard.
Okay, then Anja Witzenberger is asking, how did you integrate customer service?
I can actually answer that question because the initiative that I'm working in right now is a UX initiative. So what we are doing is actually doing interviews and setting up, let's say, data collection in a broader way about our users. So we've already done that in the past, but we're getting more and more into it. And the next step is to integrate this in an, let's say, automated way. So right now we still need people like me who've spent the last 5-6 weeks of interviewing people, summarizing these interviews together with another team. And we need to kind of provide these information and give the context to those people who want to use it. And we're kind of aiming for something, let's say a system where people can understand those things by themselves, or maybe with a little bit of help of people like me. But yeah, we're not there yet. We're working on it. But what we're doing, what we've also been doing so far is that every time we try to find out a problem, we look at the user flow and also look at the data we have in our data warehouse where people, for example, drop out or where they kind of convert very well. Then we also use polls on websites. So we have these tiny little things that we use, but right now they're still a little bit all over the place, and they help us to really identify a problem. Yeah.
And maybe a really short thing to add, also people from the ops team, as we call it, operations team, also join the cross-functional teams. So that way, of course, we also ensure this focus in the teams.
Yes, and we also ask them for feedback on certain topics if we're looking for really problems. We've identified them, or we're still looking for a problem, let's say, then we ask them. We're just a little bit careful with those feedbacks because they're more negative than positive, of course. So it's like just one perspective on user problems. Yeah.
Then Lisa Meyerhofer is asking, how exactly did you build up the cross-functional teams? Which departments are still in the same structure as before your transformation?
Yeah, good question. So in this case, a lot of the people in the company currently are in one of the cross-functional teams, some in the growth teams, like what we are. So where we divided in acquisition, activation, and engagement for the different parts of the customer journey. And some in the enablement teams, which means we need it in order to have a successful company. So for example, there's an infrastructure team, but also part of the company works mainly in the operations team, and there are cross-functional initiatives and teams, but a lot of them on a day-to-day basis work in the old work mode, basically. Yeah, because of course we need the customer service in our company.
Okay, then Markus Lauterbach is asking, do you switch roles or are they fixed?
Yeah. Papa.
Do you take us? Okay. Yes. So actually, within the concept, it allows switching the roles, and also for our team itself, we had done it in past. So, for example, if we see that someone necessarily can't handle because of workload, because obviously different roles have in mind different workloads at different times, or for example that someone it just see that his role is not a good fit, then we redistribute roles. We done also so-called role retro, where we basically discussed let's say how are we doing it within our roles and what is lacking, and maybe it makes sense to redistribute. So in short, yes, you can switch roles.
And maybe also nice to explain shortly how we do it, because in order to know who wants to be in what role, we use kind of we call it a role inclination matrix. And basically we score our interest or like natural first choice for roles from 1 to 5. And that way we try to divide the roles in a way that it works for everyone and that everyone can do something that they would like to do or try out, of course, because you can also do something new.
Yes, and what also really helped me, to be honest, because with starting to get into the role, is that I keep repeating this over the year. It's very cheesy, but 40% is better than nothing. So if you go to this role and you are really scared because you don't know what to do with it, especially facilitation, I find scary, I have to say. But also process is can be quite a bit of work if if you don't have experience with it before. Just go about it, go on, set it up as you like, as you think, and then iterate. And review and become better with your team. That's really worked for us.
Okay, then the next question from Anja Wittenberger. Can one person fill several team roles?
I think Bova should answer that question.
Yes, short answer is yes, but there is also, let's say, a catch. So there are so-called role conflicts. So for example, I believe there is conflict between value and process role, because value role ensures the best, let's say, value from the features we build, while the process role ensures the best process. And if one person takes over both roles, it's kind of, let's say, conflict of interest there. So with that, there are certain role conflicts, but again, one person can take over, for example, prods and facilitation that often can go hand in hand. So yes.
Yeah, and also we have the situation right now, actually. Vova is our facilitator and value role because our facilitator right now couldn't do it. And he's doing quite a good job with it.
One question from me, Claudia, what is happening with your cat? It's silenced.
I know, it decided to sleep all day, and then just the moment the presentation started to want attention. So now he's back to sleep. So
coming back to the real questions, Carsten Funke is asking, additionally to the roles, how are the roles assigned and accepted?
It's basically, as Agnes said, the role and so either it happens kind of everyone raises their hands and it's naturally the distribution, or you use the role inclination matrix and use that as a base. And if there's a conflict, you have to solve it as any other conflict, but usually it actually resolves itself. So far, that has worked quite well in the 2 times that I've done it, actually.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see many more questions in the chat right now, but we are running out of time. Slot will start at, let's see, I think in 5 minutes or 6 minutes. So you guys, if you want to go ahead and answer the questions in the chat, or you can also stay here and answer the questions to people who also stay here. Or maybe if people really have a very strong question, just write you guys. The contacts are on our website, agile-barcamp.de. And then you go ahead and ask questions which are not being answered right now. So Volo, Agnes, Claudia, thank you very much for giving us such cool insights in PaulCamper. I surely want to rent another bully again in the next summer, and I will do that by using your platform, of course. So thank you guys for being here, and I wish you a wonderful weekend. And yeah, so see us next time, I would say.